Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're taking on a topic that's kind of everywhere these days. Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, AI. It's definitely having a moment, isn't it?
For sure, and you've sent in some really thought-provoking sources about, the ethical side of AI, where the lines get a little blurry.
What's really fascinating is how AI has gone from like this sci-fi concept to something that's integrated into our everyday
Oh,
lives.
exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to explore both the anxieties and the huge potential of AI.
It's a powerful tool with a lot of possibilities, but also a lot of questions.
Definitely, and we want to help you figure out what it all means for you, the everyday person.
Right, because it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how it impacts society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. One of the biggest concerns we see in these sources is how AI will impact jobs.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear around AI taking over jobs and leaving people unemployed.
And I think that Oxford study really fueled those fears.
Mm.
The one that predicts almost half of all U.S. jobs could be automated by 2035.
Oh yeah, that one definitely got people talking.
But is it really as simple as robots taking over, or is it more nuanced than that?
I think it's much more nuanced. The McKinsey Global Institute did some research on this, and they found that while automation will definitely change the job market, it's more about a shift in the skills that are needed.
So instead of mass unemployment, we might see a massive career shakeup for a lot of people.
Exactly, and that's where things like retraining and upskilling come into play.
Which makes me think of that quote from Yuval Noah Harari.
Hmm.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is. Do you think AI could really lead to humanity evolving or even, becoming extinct?
Well, I think Harari's point is that AI has the power to fundamentally change us, but whether that leads to evolution or extinction is still a big unknown.
It's definitely something to ponder. And while we're contemplating the future of our species, AI is already changing how we see the world literally. Facial recognition technology is becoming more and more common. But that MIT research you sent over highlights some unsettling bias issues.
Yeah, that research showed that facial recognition systems are less accurate at identifying people with darker skin tones, which is a huge problem.
It is because it raises serious concerns about fairness and accuracy in areas like law enforcement and security.
Absolutely. These systems need to be fair and accurate for everyone, otherwise they can perpetuate existing inequalities.
And then there's the whole issue of AI-powered surveillance, which feels like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it can definitely feel that way, especially with that Brookings Institution report that found that 75 out of 176 countries are using AI for surveillance.
The 75 countries, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if privacy as we know it is disappearing.
The potential for privacy violations is definitely a major concern with AI, especially as these technologies become more sophisticated.
And it's not just governments we need to be thinking about. The Stanford research on social media algorithms was really eye-opening.
Yeah, it's kind of scary how these algorithms can shape our online experience without us even realizing it.
Right? They filter the information we see, potentially creating these echo chambers where we're only exposed to ideas that confirm our existing beliefs.
And that can make it really difficult to have open and honest conversations about important issues.
For sure. That Pew Research study we mentioned earlier found that a majority of Americans feel manipulated by these algorithms.
Which makes sense because they're designed to keep us engaged and coming back for more.
It's almost like we're in this constant battle for our attention. And there's a quote that really resonated with me from Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist. He compared this battle to an arms race.
He's basically saying that these algorithms are constantly evolving, getting better and better at capturing our attention.
And influencing our behavior too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's a very subtle form of manipulation.
So far, we've focused a lot on the potential downsides of AI, which can paint a pretty dystopian picture. But the sources you sent also highlight a lot of positive possibilities.
Yeah, AI isn't all doom and gloom. There's some really exciting applications that could actually help solve some of the world's biggest problems.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how AI can be a force for good.
Well, one area where we're already seeing incredible progress is in healthcare. Imagine a world where AI can help doctors diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately.
That sounds amazing. Early detection is crucial for so many health conditions.
Exactly. And you sent in a study from Harvard Medical School where researchers found that AI could significantly improve the accuracy of breast cancer detection.
Wow, that's huge. Is AI being used in other areas of healthcare too?
Oh, absolutely. From personalized treatment plans to drug discovery, AI is revolutionizing how we approach health and well-being.
That's incredibly promising, and it really speaks to the potential of AI to improve lives.
There's a great quote from Fei Li, a leading AI researcher. She said, AI is not just technology, it's a force that can amplify human potential.
I love that it's not about replacing humans, it's about empowering us to do more.
Exactly. And that applies to so many different fields, not just healthcare.
But what about the economic impact? We've talked about jobs being displaced. Can AI also boost economic growth?
Absolutely. The McKinsey Global Institute predicts that AI could add trillions of dollars to the global GDP by 2030.
Trillions of dollars. That's mind-boggling. How is that even possible?
Think of it as a massive productivity boost, similar to what happened when electricity revolutionized industries over a century ago.
Oh, like Andrew Ng's famous analogy, AI is the new electricity.
Exactly. It has the potential to power innovation and create entirely new industries.
That's exciting, but it also makes me think about those jobs that are being displaced. How do we ensure that people aren't left behind in this technological revolution?
That's the million-dollar question, and one that we'll definitely dive into more deeply.
We need to make sure that the benefits of AI are shared widely and that everyone has the opportunity to thrive in this new world.
I completely agree, and that's a conversation that needs to involve everyone, not just tech experts.
It's about shaping the future of AI together so that it benefits all of humanity.
Exactly. And speaking of benefits, we've touched on some of the potential of AI to solve global challenges like climate change and healthcare, but there's so much more to explore.
I'm definitely ready to dive deeper into those possibilities, and I'm sure our listeners are too.
Well, then let's get to it.
Okay, so we've talked about this huge shift in the job market thanks to AI, but how do we actually adapt to this new landscape? Like, it feels like everyone's telling us to learn new skills, but where do we even start?
Right. It can definitely feel overwhelming, especially with the pace of change in tech.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are we all supposed to go back to school for computer science degrees?
Well, I wouldn't say that's necessary for everyone, but it's more about developing this mindset of continuous learning.
Continuous learning. Okay, so what does that actually look like in real life?
Yeah. Well, luckily, there's so many resources available these days. Online courses, tutorials, all sorts of things.
Yeah, true. There's a ton of stuff out there.
Exactly. So you can pick and choose what interests you or what you think might be relevant to your field.
But how do you even know which skills to focus on? The tech world is changing so quickly, it's hard to keep up.
That's where staying informed is key. Following industry blogs, listening to podcasts, attending webinars, things like that.
So just keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening.
Exactly. And remember, it's not always about technical skills either. Things like critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, those are always going to be valuable.
Those are good points.
Yeah.
It's about being adaptable and being able to learn and evolve as the technology changes.
Right. And those are skills that you can apply to any job, really.
Okay, but what about those people whose jobs are directly affected by automation? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Well, it's important to remember that automation doesn't always equal job elimination. A lot of times it just means that jobs are evolving.
So instead of thinking about AI as replacing us, we should think about how we can work with it.
Exactly. So if you're in a field that's likely to be impacted by AI, think about how you can upskill or reskill to complement the technology.
Okay, I like that framing. It's about becoming more valuable by working alongside AI.
Exactly. And it's not just up to individuals to adapt. Companies and governments also have a big role to play.
So what should they be doing?
Well, they need to invest in reskilling programs and create pathways for workers to transition into new roles.
It sounds like it's a collective effort. Everyone needs to be on board with this shift.
It is. And there's actually a study by Deloitte that showed companies investing in AI skills training see higher workforce retention.
So it's a win-win for everyone. Companies get a more skilled workforce, and employees gain valuable skills.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we need to approach AI not just from a technological perspective, but also from a social and economic one.
We need to make sure that the benefits of AI are shared widely and that everyone has a chance to succeed in this new world.
Absolutely. And speaking of benefits, we've talked about AI's potential to tackle global challenges, but let's dive a bit deeper into those possibilities.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm particularly interested in how AI can help with climate change.
Well, one example that comes to mind is DeepMind's AI that reduced energy consumption in data centers.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was impressive. It shows how AI can help us solve complex problems in ways we couldn't have imagined before.
Exactly. And that's just one example. AI is also being used to optimize renewable energy grids, predict and manage natural disasters, even develop new materials that can capture carbon from the atmosphere.
So it's like a multi-pronged approach using AI to tackle different aspects of climate change.
Exactly. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, actually said that AI might be humanity's best bet against global threats.
That's a bold statement, but it seems like the potential is definitely there.
I think so too. Now, what about AI and creativity? That's always fascinated me.
Yeah, it's interesting because creativity has always been seen as this uniquely human trait. So how can machines be creative?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is that it's not so much about machines being creative on their own. It's more about collaboration between humans and machines.
So it's like AI is a tool that enhances human creativity rather than replacing it.
Exactly. Think of it like a painter using a new type of brush. The brush itself doesn't create the art, but it allows the artist to express their vision in new ways.
Oh, I like that analogy. So AI can be this tool that helps artists push boundaries and explore new ideas.
Precisely. And there was actually a study published in Nature Machine Intelligence showing that generative AI tools boosted creative productivity in design teams.
So instead of being a threat to artists, AI can actually be their partner.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to professional artists either. These AI tools are becoming more accessible, so anyone can experiment with creative expression.
That's pretty cool. It's like democratizing creativity.
It is. But it also raises some interesting legal and ethical questions, like who owns the copyright if an AI helps create a piece of art?
That's a good point. Those are definitely things we need to be thinking about as AI becomes more integrated into our lives.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that we're using AI responsibly and ethically.
So it's not just about the exciting possibilities. It's also about being mindful of the potential downsides.
Right. We need to have these conversations now to ensure that AI is used for good.
That brings us to this idea of human-centered AI, designing and using AI in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
Exactly. It's about putting people first and making sure that technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
I like that a lot, human-centered AI. It's a good reminder that we're not just building machines, we're building a future.
And we all have a role to play in shaping that future.
So it's not just about learning new skills, it's about being informed citizens, engaging in these conversations, advocating for the kind of future we want to see.
Absolutely. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's a story that we're all writing together.
So where do we go from here? How do we take action to ensure that AI is used for good?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
You know, we've talked about the potential of AI to solve these big global issues and even boost our creativity. But we've also touched on the need for responsible development, being careful about how we use it.
Right. It's like we're at this crossroads where we have this really powerful tool that could do so much good.
But it could also have some unintended consequences that we might not even be thinking about yet.
Yeah, exactly. So the decisions we make now are really going to shape the future of AI for, a long time to come.
So where do we even begin? It's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed by all of this.
I get that, but I think it's important to remember that the future of AI isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we can actively shape.
Okay, so how do we do that? What can we do as individuals to make sure AI is used for good?
Well, I think it starts with being mindful of the choices we make every day. Do you support companies that are transparent about how they use AI?
Oh, that's a good point. I haven't really thought about that before.
Yeah, and do you advocate for policies that prioritize ethical AI development?
Those are all things we can do, even if we're not tech experts.
Exactly. And it's also about being aware of how we interact with AI in our own lives.
Okay, so what do you mean by that?
Well, for example, do you critically evaluate the information you see online, knowing that algorithms are shaping what you see?
Oh, yeah. That's huge, especially with all the fake news and misinformation out there.
Right. And do you take steps to protect your privacy in a world where data collection is becoming more and more common?
So it's about being aware and making conscious choices about how we use technology.
Exactly. But how do we move beyond individual action and influence the bigger picture?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too.
Well, I think collective action is really important, supporting organizations that are advocating for responsible AI development.
Oh yeah, the groups that are pushing for transparency and accountability.
Exactly. They're doing really important work to shape the future of AI.
And we can support them through donations, volunteering, or even just spreading awareness about their mission.
Absolutely. And it's also about engaging in these conversations, sharing your concerns and demanding more from the companies and policymakers who are shaping this technology.
Using our voices to push for a more ethical and equitable approach to AI.
Exactly. But where do we find reliable information to guide these choices? There's so much out there, it's hard to know what to trust.
Right. That's like information overload.
It is, so it's more important than ever to be critical consumers of information. Look for sources that are transparent about their methods and funding.
Be wary of anything that seems too good to be true.
Yeah, exactly. And be especially careful about information that just confirms your biases.
That's a good one. It's easy to fall into that trap.
It is. So try to seek out diverse perspectives and, challenge your own assumptions.
So it's about being discerning, curious, but also a little bit skeptical.
Exactly. Especially in this age of AI-generated content where it's getting harder to tell what's real and what's fake.
Deepfakes and all that, that's a whole other conversation.
It is, but the point is that media literacy is more important than ever.
We need to be able to tell fact from fiction and identify reliable sources.
Absolutely. It's like building a muscle, that critical thinking muscle.
And the more we use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. But it's not just about being critical. It's also about being hopeful. Seeing the potential for good that AI offers.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in all the negative what-ifs.
It is, but we need to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
The future is not predetermined. It's up to us to choose the path we want to take.
Well said. I think it's about finding that balance between being aware of the risks and being optimistic about the possibilities.
Being informed and engaged, but also proactive in shaping the future of AI.
That's it. And believing that we can create a future where technology serves humanity.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It really has. And, it's a complex topic, but it's one that we all need to be talking about.
To all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay engaged, and remember the future of AI is in our hands.
It is. And it's a future that we can shape together.